Celtics Reddit podcast.
Marcus Smart is so good. Tatum. Brown. Got it. Knocks down a three.
Hello and welcome to the Celtics Reddit podcast presented by Celtics Life. Ben Vallis here, or as I go by on Reddit, Brutal Gash. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. We, of course, have the Pacers game to get to in a second, and later, Harden trade rumors are swirling. The Celtics coming up in reports here and there. Okay, we'll bite, so plenty to get to there. Joining us for all of that and more, Jackson, aka Rickman Lives. Jackson, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, man. I'm on holidays, so can't complain too much, but could be better, as I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah, likewise. Holidays kind of softens the blow there of, which we'll get to in a second, of that Pacers game. And of course, the co-host of this podcast and writer for CelticsLife.com, LaBird33. How's things, man?
Great. I'm hitting the eggnog, enjoying the holiday, having a good time.
Sweet. All right, well, look, we've got to get to this Pacers game. I'm going to say right off the top here, to be brutally honest with our listeners, I am up with family in my parents' place on the Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia. Beautiful location, but very much unable to really focus on any of the NBA games going on, especially the game that we're about to talk about. Just want to get that disclaimer out there. But I did catch the end and various pieces of this game, so I guess this is a good place to start, and then we'll work our way back. Guys, Jason Tatum and the Celtics, what were they thinking with that last shot to potentially win the game there? It didn't look like a particularly high-quality shot to me.
Yeah, I have no idea what they were thinking. I was reminded in the aftermath thinking about better final play scenarios we've got. Do you remember that one we had against the Jazz where it was Shane Larkin got the ball, ran off, pass out, back to Brown, open three, knocks it down for the win. That was a nice play, right?
Ball movement.
Yeah, ball movement, some creativity, exploited the weaknesses in that lineup and got an open shot. I think Tatum and Brad, for that matter, probably was still drunk off the Giannis shot, the shot he hit over Giannis from opening night. Which, I mean, good on him. He's the guy, right? He's going to take those shots, and it goes in. We're bowing down and being just spitting at the thought of trading him for James Harden, because it would be an amazing thing to pull off 2 out of your opening 3 games. But it didn't go in, and it looked like shit. So yeah, I really don't know what they were thinking. And considering we're only down by 1, I thought for sure he would have tried to at least drive to the basket or do something else, but look, it's still early in the season. It's not the end of the world, but no, I didn't like it one bit.
Yeah, he got to the line in the previous play, so you kind of want him to attack the basket, I think, there. I guess the risk is turnovers, turning the ball over. I'll say that, hit the first shot that we did against the Bucks, so he hit the game winner already. And it kind of reminds me of when we had Paul Pierce on the team. It was like we'd always just end up having Pierce taking these hero ball shots. Used to annoy people, but sometimes you just want your best player to take the shot. And I think Brad, I was looking at the thread already, Brad said that they had some action on the play that I guess didn't work out, so they just had Tatum do his own thing. The only other thing I'll say there is that, I don't mind him getting those hero ball reps. Especially in a game this early in the season where it really doesn't matter too much. I'd like to have him take those shots. I think back in the day, there used to be this, I remember, we'd always talk about how Kobe takes all these game-winning shots and he would make so many. There used to be this site where you could actually see clutch stats and see percentage of shots made by stars. And it was always surprising that Kobe actually wasn't at the top of those lists. He actually, we remembered him making the shots, but he missed a lot of them. He took a lot of them, he made a lot of them, but he missed a lot of them. So I don't mind so much Tatum taking that shot. It's just, it might have been better for him to attack the basket in that situation.
Yeah, well, Tatum hitting the mark there as an aspiring Kobe fan. User Elite Speak on the post-game thread writes, awful game-ending shot. What the fuck? In terms of what he was thinking there, the only thing I can think of to answer that question is he was thinking of his highlight reel. He's thinking, all right, I've already got the bank shot game winner over Giannis. Here I am 2 games later. We had a rough loss against the Nets on Christmas. Wouldn't it be great to get to add to my highlight reel with another game-winning 3 here? A good 5 paces behind the 3-point line there. So I don't know, very disappointing, but I can understand in the moment thinking I can make this shot.
He definitely didn't want to bank it again. That was a big time front rim. So I think he wanted it to be pure. I don't know. I thought almost that Peyton Pritchard should have been the one to take the shot. Almost, I know that would never happen in a million years. But further to Larbird's point, it's early in the season. It's ultimately pointless. Dude is 4 from 4, 5 from 5. I think overall. if he missed it, it would have been an easy scapegoat. And I mean, you could have said, why is he taking the shot? Blah 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 blah. But dude was on fire tonight. But yeah, look, I don't know. I'm sure we'll have many more game-ending scenarios where the ball's in Tatum's hand and he's like 4 or 5 foot behind the line and he'll jack up a shot. And I'm sure he'll make it again, and I'm sure he'll miss it again. So it is what it is.
Last couple of seasons, I think Tatum's actually started the season really slow. I think each of those seasons, if I remember correctly, he had some pretty rough games early on, and people were like, oh, maybe he's not as good as we think, and then he just exploded. So I'm actually not too worried right now. He had, the 3 games he's played, 30 points the first game winner, second game, 20 points. That was one I wish we didn't have to even talk about. And then this one right here, he had 25 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. He missed a game winner, but man, Tatum is still just so damn promising. So I don't mind him taking those hero reps right now.
Yeah, he did have a well-rounded stat line and kind of a well-rounded game. It was a tough first quarter, I think, for Tatum. He wasn't really able to get much going, but he came on strong in the second quarter there. One play that comes to mind is he had that rebound and immediate full-court assist to Time Lord, who also had a pretty awesome game. He also finally got to the free throw line as well, which is probably worth mentioning. A bit of a drought there in the first couple of games there for Tatum. But yeah, the decision-making in the end there, not just from Tatum, but the team in general, disappointing. But I think you're right there, Larbird. Maybe it's the eggnog talking, I don't know, but it's probably not too much to be concerned about at this point. But speaking more broadly, though, and factoring in the 2 previous games as well, what do you guys think the biggest takeaways are, not just from this game, but the other 2 games earlier in the season so far?
If I can be positive, I think Jaylen Brown's been fantastic. I mean, he seemed to go missing for a big stretch of the game this evening, but he showed up in the fourth quarter, and I think he got 2 or 3 straight baskets and a key assist to just erase that lead that the Spacers have. So I've been very encouraged by Jaylen Brown's play thus far. Peyton Pritchard has been incredibly refreshing and so not what I thought. I thought he would, be on in garbage time. I probably should have only seen him against the Nets, but lo and behold, here he is in clutch time in a meaningless game, so to speak. But he's still out there, and he's shooting so well. Time Lord is looking fantastic as well. I mean, probably more or less Morley. Mainly just today is what I'm trying to say, Morley. The eggnog is here as well, let me tell you. So yeah, I'm not super discouraged by what I've seen from us so far. I mean, again, you don't want to get too reactionary early in the season, but I guess the one thing that lingers more than anything else, mainly coming from the Nets game, and I guess to an extent the fourth quarter against the Bucks, is that we don't really. I don't think we're in contention this year from the looks of it. I mean, we're yet to see the best of Tatum consistently, and it's such a small sample size, obviously. But I just think we look miles and miles behind the Brooklyn Nets when Giannis decides, or aka an elite player decides to turn it on against us. We don't really see him have an answer for that. So, yeah, my takeaways are we've probably regressed slightly, but again, this is a 3-game sample size, so not trying to get too reactionary at this point, but I think we've regressed slightly. That would be my take so far.
Yeah, Pritchard and Time Lord shooting up the showcase season time power rankings.
Right, the stock is rising.
But no, honestly, I love what I'm seeing from those guys. Obviously, we're at the point already where I'm like, we can't trade them. They're too good. Yeah. But overall, yeah, I mean, look at it like this. We've played 3 games. The first game was against the Bucks, who had the best record in the league last year. We beat them. The second game, again, I wish we didn't have to talk about it, but the Nets are going to be incredible this year if Durant and Kyrie are healthy. We knew that going into it. And in this third game, we can't underrate the Pacers. They had roughly the same record as us last year, at least for the regular season. And I'll say that, this team, you really can't get too up or down about anything that's happening this early in the season. This team that we have right now is more or less the exact same team that we had in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, minus Kemba, who is resting. I mean, by all accounts, he could be playing if it was actually serious games. He played all of our playoff games last year, despite the knee issue. So Kemba's still there. Let's not forget about Kemba. Mm-hmm. With Kemba back in the mix, it's basically the same team. The only difference is that we've added Thompson, who actually looks like a plus. We've added Pritchard, who actually looks like a plus. And then we have other guys who really haven't even got a chance to even see what they do, like Neesmith and Langford, who might actually make an impact later in the season. Obviously Hayward's not on the team anymore, but again, I can't stress this enough. Hayward had 1 healthy playoff game in his entire tenure as a Celtic. So, I mean, he was a non-factor. So, I mean, I look at this team, it's the same team that made the Eastern Conference Finals. We will be in the mix, and there's so many things that we can do as the season progresses as far as players stepping up or even trade opportunities with the multiple, traded player exceptions that we can make additions. So, yeah, I mean, so far, we beat the Bucks and we barely lost to the Pacers. That's fine. I mean, we're still good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. User Hail Kyrie writes, Brad needs to fix the offense. Too much ISO ball, and I hate it. Rob was a shining star tonight. So 2 things to break down there. And one of them was what I wanted to get to was that the offense looks extremely shaky, and they have these pockets of time where they are actually zipping the ball around and getting good shots. But for the most part, and we saw this going down the stretch in the fourth quarter, way too much, in my opinion, ISO ball by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, just not actually moving the ball to develop a good shot or a good play, but just... I guess you could consider this a good thing, but Brad Stevens just trusting too much in those guys to develop their own shot and make their own play rather than running a set offense. Do you guys agree with that at all?
I thought maybe Brown probably did a little bit better in his ISO situations. I think it was, at the start of the fourth quarter when we were I think we were down 8 or down 5 or something like that, whatever. But the shot clock was running out and it looked like he was about to throw up a shot, and then he just threw this ball inside to Tristan Thompson, who finished in the paint. I think that took it to a tie game or whatever. So, maybe Tatum is the kind of guy who would just throw that shot up. Maybe that's a bit unfair, but I thought Brown showed a little bit more awareness and a little bit more better decision making. But again, this is hindsight. If that shot goes in, this is a party, and we're talking about how good Tatum is by miles, and it's we're talking about this much here. So
you're absolutely right.
It is what it is.
Yeah, my main takeaways for this is a little bit of a transition for Tatum and Brown, at least coming off of the playoff run they just had, not long ago, a couple months ago, because they had Kemba in the mix. So right now they don't have Kemba, they don't have Hayward, so they are very much our ball handlers and our playmakers. And so far, I have to agree with Jackson. I like what I'm seeing, and I actually wrote a note. I'm seeing them attack the basket more. And both of them they're successfully getting to the basket. And I'm seeing that there's so many opportunities for kickouts. So what I was seeing in the first quarter, the only guy that we have starting right now who's actually a viable option to kick the ball out to is Marcus Smart. So they just kept kicking it to Marcus Smart. I don't love that. I love Marcus, but he's not a great 3-point shooter, so I don't love him as a kickout option. And then as the rest of the game continued, we saw that Grant Williams was getting those opportunities. Again, I don't know if he's really someone you can reliably count on, although I should note that Smart and Williams both actually shot 50% from 3 today, so that's good. And then we're now seeing, is Pritchard, is he a viable option? Is he a viable option as a 3-point shooter? I think that's essential. I've been mentioning this in the threads. I think it's essential that we have to find someone who we can reliably count on as a kick-out option, whether that is, Pritchard, who, so far looks good, or if it's someone like Neesmith, who unfortunately looks like a little bit deer in the headlights early on, but if that guy can develop into that player, great. Or if it's a trade target. I mean, we're going to need someone to be a kick-out option, because what I'm seeing from Tatum and Brown looks great. They're getting to the basket. They just need options to spread the floor for them, and someone who can, basically take advantage of their shot creations.
Yeah, well, it certainly looked like Peyton Pritchard was a solid option for kick out, and several other things really today, 3 of 3 from 3, 5 of 5 from the field overall, very impactful off the bench, particularly for a rookie. And I know he's a senior rookie and everything, as a senior out of college, but still very impactful in just his 3rd game so far. That's actually a good segue. Who do you think is the best? We talk about showcase season. It's been a concept that Larbert introduced, early on this season, or before the season even started. So 3 games into the season, we're talking showcase season. Which newbie do you think has had the best showing so far? And to add to that, who do you think's been the worst standout player so far?
It's got to be Pritchard, doesn't it? He's getting the minutes. Yeah, right. He's getting up shots.
Kind of answered the question before I asked it.
I suppose, yeah. But I mean, we got to give credit where it's due. I mean, the guy's done in 3 regular season games what Carson Edwards couldn't do in an entire regular season and the playoffs. Which I feel bad for the dude, but it is what it is. So I think I see a lot of potential there. Marcus Smart clearly loves him, so he's going to get that. That doggedness is going to be added to his game. It's there already, but it's going to be refined under that kind of influence. And I mean, God, if he can shoot even just half as well as he shot today, it's 100%, so 50%. Yes, that's still very good. he will be valuable. And I think he's definitely, earned himself some minutes. Like we saw Grant Williams sort of force his way into rotations in his rookie season, like quite early on last year too. It looks like Pritchard's kind of doing that as well. So he's got to be the one that, you got to put him in the top, don't you?
Yeah, it's been interesting because I think coming into there were so many debates about who would be starting. A lot of people were wondering if it would be Grant Williams, and we ended up starting both Tice and Thompson, which I don't think any of us really even expected, at least early on. So, but yeah, I mean, Pritchard for sure. I mean, that guy looks polished. He looks ready. He looks like an NBA player. And of course, it's such a small sample size, and you have to continue to take it with a great grain of salt. I mean, I've seen a lot of players who come out early on in their careers and they shock everyone until the opposing teams can start getting some tape on them and they figure out their weaknesses. You have to give it like 10 or 11 games and make sure he's actually continuing to play at that level. But there's nothing really negative to say about what we're seeing from him right now. I mean, he's making great passes, making great defensive plays. He's obviously hitting all of his shots tonight. So yeah, Pritchard looks great. It's worth mentioning both him and also Time Lord, who was great tonight. They're both older than Tatum. I mean, these are guys who are, although they didn't get their reps in the NBA, they got their development over the last several years, whether it's in NCAA or, in Time Lord's case, maybe a little bit of G League. They're at a point where they should be reaching a level that, they can be reliable about NBA players, although it's like only Pritchard's third game. So, yeah, I mean, both of those guys are looking good, at least in this game. So they're definitely at the top of that, showcase idea. And that's not to say that it would trade them. It's just, they're definitely the ones that are standing out right now.
Yeah, 4 steals and 2 blocks for Robert Williams in this one. And Jackson, you called it in our Slack during the game. He busted out Time Lord, that is the Terry Rozier style steal on the Pacers. And then, Marcus Smart gets ahead for the full court layup there to tie the game. Yeah, that's right. And things were looking good there until because our defense has been very spotty, and unfortunately Sabonis got to the bucket there and ultimately won the game for the Pacers. But Robert Williams definitely had some great moments in this game, including smacking his head on the backboard for a putback, which is just such a Time Lord thing to do. Yeah, and then, like I said, the steal and the huge dunk at the end of the fourth to tie the game. In terms of newbies, though, I definitely agree with Peyton Pritchard and Robert Williams. I got to give a shout out to Jeff Teague, who there was a lot of debate going into the season. Obviously Brad Wanamaker departed, went to the Golden State Warriors. Good for him. Great franchise. Wish him all the best. Jeff Teague comes in on a vet minimum after a pretty poor season in Minnesota and shoots 0 for 6 from the floor today, which doesn't look good jumping off the page, but 9 free throws overall. So 10 free throw attempts, actually. All of his 9 points were from the free throw line. And I think he looks pretty competent out there. Like, he actually looks like someone who can come off the bench and competently run the offense, which is not something that we could always say about Brad Wanamaker. So, guys, is it fair to say that Jeff Teague is better, is a more solid replacement and backup point guard than Brad Wanamaker was ever for the Celtics?
Yeah, his inability to sort of score anything other than a 3 is a little bit annoying. But if he does get to the line and he does shoot 9 of 10, that's great. Wanamaker was an exceptional free throw shooter, but you just never felt like he was going to attack or really offer anything significant offensively. Teague, I can see, is kind of taking the game on and is attempting things. So if it doesn't work, then that is a little bit annoying. But I think he's done quite well. I think there was a bit said about how much he idolized Brad Stevens, or like Brad Stevens saved his life when he was in high school or college. I can't remember exactly what it was about, but I think Teague's going to be one of those players that we haven't seen in a while, where a player, this sort of discarded player, comes in and Brad Stevens just turns him into just elevates his game. Teague could be another one of those guys. I'm prepared to say 3 games in, small sample size again, that he probably is going to offer more to this team. He's probably going to be better for us in the long run than Brad Wanamaker. I like what I've seen from him so far. I just wish he could finish in the paint.
The floater situation. Sorry, Nate, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the floater situation for Jeff Teague, in that anytime he makes a 3, he's guaranteed to miss 2 or 3 floaters. That seems to be sort of the miss-make ratio or formula for Jeff Teague. I hope he can get around that, because he's so close to being like, oh wow, okay, like we kind of have a bench now with this rotation of bigs. And by the way, the bigs basically all shared the big man minutes tonight, which is interesting and something we'll get into in a future episode perhaps. But like, if Jeff T can start to hit a more balanced shot chart and hit, half of his floaters instead of missing all of them, then suddenly it does feel like we have this much more impactful bench. And Lar Bird, you mentioned it before, Kemba comes back in the near future. I don't know, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but suddenly our roster's kind of rounded out a little bit, and maybe we're stronger than we were last year.
Yeah, I was about to say same thing. I mean, there was a user, Lizzy5775MLJ on, long name, on Reddit, who's basically posted what's our rotation and minutes distribution? What do you think it's going to be, our 8-man rotation? Right now, I think it could be completely different. So Teague, it could be completely different later in the season. Teague right now, he's looking okay. I mean, I liked him a lot more in game 1 than him going on 0 from 11 from the field in the last couple of games. But yeah, he looks competent. But it's interesting because you think about it, as the season goes on and when Kemba returns, does that push Smart to the bench? And then does that mean if you had a choice between Pritchard and Teague getting the third guard minutes? I mean, right now, I'd rather have Pritchard. Again, like maybe we were just a little too high on this kid early on, but right now I could see Teague getting very little minutes. And maybe he's someone that you end up throwing into a trade later in the season, right?
Could be.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, it comes back to demonstrating or showcasing one's value. And, the last 2 games have been disappointing in various ways, being blown out by 40 points and losing to a very poor selected shot by Jason Tatum there. Very disappointing. But yeah, I guess that the positive takeaway here is that we've got multiple guys showcasing talent, whether you want to look at that from talent to contribute to the team as we go into hopefully a deep playoff run, or to package in a trade for a star or a much better role player. Things are looking up in the small sample size that we've seen in that regard so far. So that's looking good. Jaylen Brown, we should talk about. There actually was an article on CelticsLife.com, shout out to Celtics Life, by Zach Brassard breaking down this sort of new usage of Jaylen Brown and how we're putting him in the pick and roll as the ball handler a lot. We saw that be quite successful against Milwaukee. Haven't seen quite as much of it in the subsequent 2 games. So speaking to that and just Jaylen Brown's performance overall so far, guys, how are you feeling about, and I guess we can look at this as him showcasing his value as well, but obviously his contributions to the team. Thoughts on Jaylen Brown so far?
I like everything I've seen from Jaylen Brown so far. There's not I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility if you ask like who's our best player right now. I'm not 100% sure that Tatum, would be over Brown. To be brutally honest, but I mean, we all know potential long-term picture and whatnot. It will be Tatum, but I mean, as far as like right now is concerned, like I'm not putting Brown ahead of Tatum. Hot take maybe, but like I would be physically ill if we ended up if we did trade him away for James Harden, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. But from what I've seen of him, from his shot selection, like he seems to be very competent from the mid range. So far this season, his finishing at the rim looks a little bit better as well too. Driving, attacking the basket as well. I think he only had like 1 3-point attempt today. So that doesn't necessarily say much in like a 1-game context to me. But the guy is, again, like I said a bit earlier, like he seemed to go missing for a little bit. I think the whole team went missing in the third quarter, to be brutally honest. But he had some big plays at the start of the fourth that got us right back into it too. So I'm very encouraged from what I'm seeing from him so far.
Yeah, I love Jaylen. Jaylen looks amazing. I mean, he should have an all-star season this year if he continues to play like this. I'll say that, Jackson, your hot take about Brown potentially being better than Tatum, surprisingly, so I wrote this article on Celtics Life, where we'll get into it, I guess, about Harden as a potential target and what that all means. And at one point I mentioned, I guess I undersold Brown. I was saying Brown's solid. Just to spoil it a little bit, I'm completely out on the idea of trading Brown for Harden. But in this article, I guess it wasn't as glowing about him as possible. So several people actually pointed out, a couple guys, Bosnian Celtic was one guy's name, and the bad guy. They both mentioned that they would prefer to trade Tatum over Brown, which surprised me. Honestly, it shocked me. I saw some similar comments on the Facebook group on Celtics Life where people were saying that they would rather trade Tatum than Brown. They think that Brown is a better player. I completely disagree. I think that Tatum is a better player. I love Brown. I think that Tatum is amazing, though. I mean, I think his ability to create shots and just his entire arsenal as an offensive player, that combined with his length as a defender and the kind of impact he makes on that end, makes him clearly the better player. I mean, he was third team All NBA. He should have been second team, I honestly think, last year over Siakam. I think that we should have had Tatum as a second team All NBA. And Brown didn't make an All-Star team. I get that he didn't have the same opportunities, and this season we're seeing more of it, but still, I have Tatum ahead. But again, I'm not shitting on Brown. I love Brown. Brown's great. I just think that it was surprising to me. It was surprising to me how many fans are still, I guess, debating that. And again, it's hard to say that without sounding like I'm a Brown hater, which I'm not.
Yeah, I get it. You're just a lover of both. You just love one child more than the other, which is a secret that I think most parents of multiple children behold.
Danny Ainge definitely has favorite children. You know it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, one of them got a supermax contract. The other one did. I mean, Brown's amazing, but Tatum is obviously the most important player on this franchise heading forward.
Totally.
Yeah. Now, look, we've got to move on. If I'm sure we could talk about the first 3 games of the season all night, but if for no other reason than I'm podcasting in the room that my baby is sleeping in here, and I can hear her crying downstairs. So we've got to move on. We've got to wrap this one up pretty soon. I just wanted to wrap up the Pacers game stuff with the fact that Miles Turner, 3 for 10, 30% from the floor, 0 for 4 from 3. Just generally a stat line and a performance that makes me feel better that we didn't bite on the Pacers offer there, or alleged offer, back in the days where we were sort of potentially shopping around Hayward to the Pacers there. So just wanted to wrap up mentioning that stat line, and perhaps Danny Ainge has made the right decision there.
Yeah.
But
could have used Doug McDermott tonight, to be perfectly honest, but that was a career night. That was a career night for him, I think. So, alas.
Absolutely. But, allegedly they weren't willing to include him or Aaron Holiday, who was also awesome in this game in that trade. And I guess we can see why. We've got to move on, and we're going to focus on, it was a post to Celtics Reddit by Larbird and a submission to CelticsLife.com, again by Larbird, titled, "Humoring the Harden Enthusiasts, Looping in a Third Team for Kemba Might Be a Path." Larbird, can you talk us through this one?
Yeah, so I mean, they can obviously read it on Reddit or CelticsLife.com, but the main things I want to point out is that I'm completely out on the idea of trading Jaylen Brown for Harden. And I'll actually even say up front that I think that a large part of these rumors that we're hearing are just kind of posturing to get Philly to give up more than just Ben Simmons. So I don't even know how realistic it is. But Adrian Wojnarowski was on TV and he was saying that that Houston was talking to the Nets and they were talking to the Celtics, and there's lots of discussions there and potentially looping in third or fourth teams to get it done. So it does seem like we're at least kicking the can around or kicking the tires on potentially trading for Harden. The main thing is I wouldn't trade for Jaylen Brown for all the reasons that Jackson just mentioned. He loves Jaylen Brown, and those fans think that Jaylen Brown is the best player on the team. I mean, he is a blossoming young star who could in a couple of years end up being on a level with someone like Jimmy Butler. He's a phenomenal complement to Jason Tatum. I think those two have very different skill sets and they complement each other very well. They're obviously roughly the same age, and they're both signed on to 4 to 5 seasons. I just look at our long-term view of what we want to do, and it just makes sense to keep those guys together. I'd rather have 10 years of those two than bring in someone like Harden. Harden's amazing. He's a great offensive player. He's not the defender that Brown is. I don't know if he fits our system as well as Brown does. I mean, he's someone who is very ball dominant. So you're then, changing what you're doing with our team. I think that Tatum right now and Brown sharing the offense makes sense. So, I mean, right off the bat, I'm out on trading Brown. And the main reason is because Harden only has 2 years left on his contract. So you basically putting yourself in the same situation that we had with Kyrie Irving, where even if you were successfully able to acquire Harden, you're now, you have this season. We're probably still not going to win a championship with Tatum and Harden if it's just those two. I mean, there's a lot of teams in our way. And alternatively, if it's just Brown and Harden, I don't think you're better than, LeBron and Davis. I don't think you're better than Kyrie and Durant. So you're going for a 2-year window that doesn't really make sense. And then after the end of those, 2 years, you run the risk of Harden leaving. So it just seems silly.
Yeah.
So what I kind of, the premise of this was, is there an alternative? And it's still not an alternative that I think fans will love, but it's, I think if you put together a package built around Kemba Walker and Marcus Smart, who combine make about the same money-wise as Harden, I think you can put together at least a competitive offer of what Brooklyn was allegedly offering. I don't think that you can get those two and still beat an offer that's the Sixers if they're building an offer around Ben Simmons. It's hard to envision beating that with Kemba and Smart. And then the other aspect of this is that I don't think that Kemba makes sense in Houston. They have John Wall already, so the whole idea here is that you could potentially put together a compelling package, but really what it hinges on is how do we value Kemba Walker as an asset at this point? Because he'd have to go to a third team. I mentioned a couple options, like maybe you end up shipping him to New York, where he, supposedly had as a second option as a free agent before he signed with Boston. New York was his second option. So maybe you send him to New York. Maybe New York then sends some additional assets to Houston, like, Julius Randle or, a couple of their young guys. Maybe that makes sense. But, I do think that there's a path where at least we can make a competitive offer. And then if you ended up with Harden, Brown, and Tatum, all three of them, then it's interesting. That's interesting. That's something where you'd go for a 2-year window and hope that things work out. And we'd at least be extremely competitive. And long term, we'd have options even if Harden jumped ship.
Sure. This might be a dumb question. I'm painfully uneducated when it comes to trades and things like that. Can the TPE be used in any kind of trade or a 3-team trade at all?
So the issue with the TPE is that it's 28.5 million. So Harden makes about 41 million. So you couldn't really use it in a Harden trade. However, you can. So like the idea here was trading out Kemba and Smart, who combined make about 41 million. For Harden makes about 41 million. You could then do a follow-up trade where you end up, acquiring someone else with the TPE who rounds out the roster. That's something you could do. So in addition, it wouldn't just be Kemba and Smart. It would have to be, Kemba and Smart, lots of first round picks. We talked about these guys earlier, but Peyton Pritchard, Time Lord, maybe that's a couple of assets that now are very intriguing to teams. Yeah. Would that be enough that Houston's like, yeah, I'll get Peyton Pritchard and Time Lord and get some assets for Kemba and get Marcus Smart, who's an all defensive first teamer? Maybe that's a very competitive offer. But yeah, so you couldn't really use the TPE to acquire Harden, but you could use it to, do a follow-up trade.
Okay. Devil's advocate, just for 1 second. I remember, what was it, 3 years ago? When it became apparent Kawhi Leonard was available, Ben, myself, and Joe, we sat here and we're just like, Kawhi Leonard, no, don't want that. No, absolutely not. That'd be a terrible idea. We don't want to get that rid of. Toronto ends up getting him. They get a ring, but then he walks. So let's just say in an alternative universe, we get Harden, we lose either Brown or Tatum, and then Harden ends up leaving. Is it worth getting rid of those one guys for one ring?
Yeah, I don't. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. If you can guarantee a ring, then I think everything changes, right? I think Toronto was in a very different situation. Toronto was giving up DeRozan, who, definitely wasn't on the same level as Kawhi. And, they could take that gamble in a way I don't think we can. Like if you bring in Harden, you pair him with one of those guys, you're still probably not the favorite. You're not going to be the favorite. Obviously LeBron and Davis and teams like Brooklyn and even the Bucks and even Miami are still going to be very, very dangerous, very, very likely to give us hell. We might not even make the Eastern Conference Finals. So, getting that guy, if you can guarantee a championship, it changes your math a little bit, but I'm assuming you can't guarantee a championship. No. I'm assuming that more likely you might not even make the Eastern Conference Finals. Really, are we seeing this bench still needs a lot of work? Yeah. There's going to be some teams in our way. So would I do it for this season and then we miss the Eastern Conference Final and then next year is just the same old fucking nightmare free agent circus that we went with Kyrie, where everywhere Harden goes, they're like, Harden, where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go? And it becomes a distraction. It's like, no, it's a nightmare. I don't want to go through that. So I would definitely be out on moving one of the young guys for him. But if you can do it in another way, and maybe it's not totally realistic, but if you can get him for a package built around Kemba and Smart and additional assets and picks, then then that changes how you approach it.
Look, I'm going to ask the question. I've seen it asked online. I've seen it answered in multiple different ways. But would you rather trade for Harden and a probable title, not a definite, but a probable title in the next 1 to 2 years, or not trade, keep the core of the Jays and Smart and have 10 years of sustained success, meaning likely to continue getting to the Eastern Conference Finals with an unlikely championship? What's your preference out of those two scenarios? Because that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Jackson, I'd be curious yours. My preference is very much my preference is very much to keep the young guys. I just think the window's larger, and I don't know if this is really our window regardless.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Harden is a perennial MVP candidate, absolute scoring freak. you have to seriously consider the option to acquire him if he's available, because I actually think it would put us much closer to Brooklyn and the Bucks and the Lakers, to be perfectly honest, if we had a team of Jason Tatum, James Harden, and 4 other guys. You know what I mean? I think that's legitimately a very, very good shout. However, it gets harped on so much, and it's almost a meme at this stage, but like, Tatum's 22. Brown is 24, I believe. These guys are super young. Like Durant's 32. LeBron's going to be 40 soon. Patience, I think, is something that we can afford to have. I know there's a big urgency to like win now. You got to take advantage now. Like when Bill Simmons talks about, hey, I think that Celtics window is gone, blah blah blah, and it's just like I don't buy that for a fucking second. I really don't. I think we have. We've got them on long-term deals. I think we're going to be competitive. We're going to be there or thereabouts pretty much every year. I think, the worst case scenario, we end up like a 6 seed and we have an uphill battle to get it out of the first round. That's really it. I mean, health, obviously, if we stay healthy as well, too, that has to be factored in, but everyone's playing under that. So I would much rather keep this team. That sustained success, or that sustained competitiveness, I guess you could say, Ben. Even if it doesn't result in us getting, let's just say it gets to the finals one time and we lose in 4 or 6 or whatever. That would obviously, I would like us to be in the best position possible to win a chip, to win multiple. But I don't think Harden's the guy you sort of sell the farm for. I think, hindsight, if we could have got the Davis deal over the line, although, no, actually, scrap that, because he always said he was going to LA. I think any other superstar that becomes available, whether it be Giannis, whether it be Luka Doncic, and I'm talking like long term here, I think that's something you consider blowing up for. But Harden, again, exceptional player. I don't think I could get excited about him. I was so excited when Kyrie got here, even though I loved and was heartbroken that IT left. My tune changed very quickly when I realized that we were going to have Kyrie Irving on our team. And again, we know how that played out. So I am much more hesitant. Once bitten, twice shy. I would rather just stick with the guys and get there on our own merits. Quote unquote.
Yeah, one thing I'll say here is that, a couple people were like, why would you be opposed to making the team better? Obviously, Harden makes a team better. I mean, yeah, in the short term, you would assume that bringing in a player as good as Harden makes you better. But in a lot of ways, it reminds me of back around 2006, 2005, where we were strongly considering trading for Allen Iverson. And at the time, I was like, why would you want Iverson? He's aging. You just be basically Iverson and Pierce. Yeah, it makes you a little bit better, but that's not going to get you over the hump, man. There's so many teams out there that can still crush us, and you're bringing in our ball dominant player. It doesn't make sense. Now, if you had a situation where you can bring in someone like KG and Ray and Pierce and pair them and have like a big 3. It made a lot more sense back then because our path was wide open to a championship. It's just the thing is like you bring in Harden and you pair them with either Tatum or Brown. I mean, you still have Durant and Kyrie and Brooklyn and all these other teams that are still probably better than us. So it doesn't make sense. But one thing I'll also say, I've had a lot of people read that article and a lot of people commented, there's no way that Houston would be traded for the likes of Kemba Walker and Marcus Smart, who have no trade value whatsoever, apparently, according to them. Marcus Smart is a real asset. I'd hate to give up him. Like, he is a tremendous asset. He's an incredible guard. Like, we were allegedly trying to trade him, or at least we were in discussions to trade him for a top 2 pick this year. Like, that guy has a ton of trade value. And I almost feel like people are undervaluing Kemba at this point. People are acting like he's not even worth a late first. I mean, a month ago, he was untouchable, and now people are saying he can't be. Look, I know his knee is a concern. It is a concern. But he can come back at any moment and put up all-star stats again. And he's an asset. He's an all-star. The guy's coming off an all-star season. So I do think it's a competitive starting point for an offer, even without including Tatum or Brown. So yeah, I think it's a path that I think is more realistic than I think people want to admit.
I agree. And, we talk about, showcase of all of the players on our team. And it might be a case of this trade isn't possible with Kemba until he comes back and plays a month of healthy basketball and looks like his old self before Houston actually, decide to bite on that offer. It's worth mentioning as well that in this article, which is very good, you're not necessarily saying here's what definitively will happen or even what could maybe happen. It's just like, here are the possibilities in this hypothetical world if we do engage further in those trade discussions with Houston. And to add to that, because there are people on multiple sides of this argument, Reddit user Blony Tundetto, I think I'm saying that right, Right, your entire post can be debunked with this fact. James Harden dropped 40 in his sleep last night. He wasn't even trying. And then a reply to that by Jimmy the Gent 2020 writes, exactly, delusion in this post. Harden is out of shape and is not putting in max effort and dropped 44 with 17 assists against a full-strength Portland team. He also had a great defender like Robert Covington, on him and made it look easy. So... I mean,
and they lost that game, right?
Yeah,
they lost.
That's right.
That game,
They did lose that game. Exactly.
CJ McConnell got 44.
Yeah, so there you go.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, great. Good stats. They lost the game. You know, what are you going to do?
That's exactly right. But it's just to say that there are, there's a full spectrum of fandom and ideologies with regards to this current issue and situation. But, if you want to learn more about it, if you want to learn about the possibilities and what has the potential to happen, highly recommend hopping on CelticsLife.com or Celtics Reddit, checking out Larbird33's article because it is very informative. All right, look, we're going to have to wrap this one up. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to CelticsLife.com. You can check out all of Larbird33's stuff there, as well as plenty of other great written content. I mentioned Zach Brassard's article up the top there as well. Jackson, Larbird, love your work, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ben. Cheers. Likewise.
Happy holidays, guys.
Enjoy the rest of your holidays, guys. We'll be back in a week or so, maybe less if something amazing happens. Until then, go Celtics. Peace.